So we're back with another episode here. On today's episode, we're going to be installing this new 2021 Fender that I just picked up off Facebook Marketplace. Got it for $100. It's honestly in really good shape. I needed to get a new Fender because, as you guys know, I did a 49mm fork conversion and I could not run the FLT Fender, which is the early model bagger Fenders, because obviously I had 2014 lowers on, so I had to go with a 2014 to 2023 Fender, I believe is the years that fit. But another issue that we ran into is, so because we have a 21-inch wheel on this bike, just putting the fender on won't happen because the holes won't line up with the fork lower holes. So that was an issue that I ran into. On the older bikes, you can actually still use the old fender and you just have to like shift it a little bit, but not on the new ones apparently. So what I ended up doing was just looking for brackets on Amazon. They're basically like just simple $15 cheap metal brackets that you honestly can't go wrong with for the price. Sometimes just it's not worth it to make them, so these I just got for cheap. And basically what they do is just allow the fender to be spaced up a little bit and clear the wheel, no problem. So it was actually pretty decent little product. They look like they're stamped, and they came with stainless steel, so both of those get mounted to the fork lowers and then they get mounted to the fender. So in this next clip here, I have all my brake lines and everything that I ordered from Corey's Custom Cycles. So I ended up going with a 44-inch for the longest side and a 38-inch for the shortest side. We also have our Russell fittings here, which are nice because they're all stainless steel and they won't rust and get all shitty looking like stock Harley does. So yeah, we're going to mount those on the Brembo. And I got them, I think, at a 35-degree angle, so that way they won't hit off each other, and in theory should all flow perfectly down to the calipers. So yeah, that's what I was working on here, is getting that all fitted up to get our brakes working. Also for these front brakes, because they're a newer style Brembo, most likely the guy was running .4 in them, so that's what I'm going to be running in them as well, because I didn't feel like taking them apart and brake cleaning everything in order to, run .5. So that's what I'm going to be running, just some cheap .4 Bell Ray stuff. Ideally, you want to use some high boiling point brake fluid, but I'm not going to do that right now. Eventually, I'll probably throw some of that in, but I just didn't have it in the budget, so I was just making do with what I had on hand, and that's what I'm rolling with. So, yeah. So here's a little time lapse of me just mounting those brackets to the fender right now to get those on. And honestly, it was really good fitment. It's like pretty clean product, so it turned out good. All right, so as you can see, we got the fender on. It's looking pretty mint, but yeah, all we had to do was just get these little brackets to basically space it up higher so that it would clear the 21. And it's looking pretty good. Nice and tucked. These newer fenders are pretty nice. They're not as bulky as the old ones. They're a little bit slimmer, but they're just so flimsy though, man. This material. One's little fender bender and this thing's going in the garbage, but yeah, so that's it right there. 2021 Fender with a 2014 front end on the skinny tire bagger. It's looking pretty spiffy. Just needs a good clean. But moving on to the brakes now. We're finally going to get the brake lines and the fittings all on so we can get these Brembos rolling, and hopefully everything will be good with the brakes, because stock Harley brakes aren't the best, so I'm hoping I'll actually notice a big difference with these Brembo calipers. So now I'm installing the banjo bolt. I actually had to order one off Amazon because the thread pitch that I had was wrong for the other one. So this one is a double banjo fitting. I think it's M10 by 1. And the other one that I had that was Russell brand, unfortunately didn't fit because it was M10 by 1.25 thread pitch. So yeah, we got that buttoned up. Luckily Amazon came in clutch. So we just tighten that up, put our crush washers in, make sure everything is fitting solid, and then just torqued her down. Also tightened up the fittings, and then now I'm going to be installing the 6-shop Tygon tube reservoir kit. So I actually went with this kit because it was super cheap. It was about like $24 as compared to the Brembo one that's literally like $100, and it sits up way higher and just looks uglier. But yeah, so here we are, just fitting everything basically loosely. Didn't put any of the clamps or anything on yet because I just wanted to see where I was going to mount this and how I was going to route the cable. So here we are. I had to take off the throttle cable or the throttle tube to mount everything. But I was just checking the fitment. So make sure you blue Loctite everything as well. Here I was putting the throttle tube back on because I had to space everything out to get the reservoir to fit where I wanted. I also moved the brake lever in just a little bit. But so here I'm just clamping up the Tygon tubing, and pretty soon here you'll see me try to figure out what length I want to run my tube, and we're just gonna cut that to length and then basically just use the other clamp to tighten up everything. So all in all, the way I routed this was exactly how Seabear routes his, so that's what I decided to do. I just looked at his stories and see how he had it routed, so I just did the same thing. I don't know why people wrap it around the bar like that, but I think it's just for aesthetic purposes. Maybe it just looks pretty cool in my opinion. But kind of curious, like if the sun will affect the heat in that tube at all. And yeah, I don't know, we'll see. I also heard something about potentially running the master cylinder at like half full, but I just decided to fill mine completely because that's just what I did. But yeah, I'll have to do some more research on that because I don't want to deal with any brake fade. So here we are just bleeding the master cylinder. So first things first, you got to bleed the brake calipers, and then the last thing I did was bleed the master cylinder. I'm not sure if that's the proper order you do it in, but that's the way I did it, and everything seems to be firmed up pretty well. Obviously, if you have like a better tool to bleed the brakes, definitely go that route. I see a lot of people use a syringe and whatnot, which pushes it up to the master versus going down. Also, make sure you keep a can of brake cleaner on you so you can hose down anything that potentially gets on any paint, because as you know, dot 4 is corrosive, so you want to clean that off as much as possible. And if possible, cover all painted surfaces with, tank covers or towels, whatever you like to use. But all in all, that was the install on the front Brembo brakes. We finally got rid of the old shitty Harley brakes, so hopefully there's a noticeable difference with this master cylinder and these calipers. Looking forward to that. Eventually, I want to upgrade to floating rotors in the front, but we're doing this build on a budget, so this is what I could get my hands on, and that's what we're going to stick with for now. We just got our headlight for the Glide from Tucky Customs. Honestly, it's pretty sturdy. I like this headlight because it actually mounts right onto the frame of the bike. So as you can see, those little slots perfectly notched for it to sit on there so it won't fly out on you when you're doing a wheelie. But yeah, basically it's this guy named Mike. I believe his last name is Delecki, I'm not sure. But yeah, Tucky Customs makes the whole bracket. And then I think these lights are just like Amazon lights, which are just like the rip-off version of Baja. But honestly, like, who cares? Because they work, and I'm not paying like mad money for Baja lights. Because honestly, like, it's just not worth it in my opinion. But it's a pretty sturdy design. Then it also comes with all your mounting hardware. I think he makes this in-house as well. But yeah, overall it looks pretty nice. We're gonna throw her on the bike. For the price, can't go wrong. But the main thing for me is that it just doesn't fly out of the fairing, and that's what I wanted. So pretty stoked about this part. She's kind of heavy though, not gonna lie, but it is what it is. All right, so we got the headlight mounted on the Road Glide. So it was a bit of a mission. Now, I don't want to talk shit. Like, Mike was a pretty chill guy. Like, he offered to refund me and everything. He sold a bunch of these to a lot of people, and they've had no problems. So it's not his product. It's probably just a one-off or something to do with my fairing. But for me, it didn't really fit that well. It was a mission trying to get this to sit flush in the fairing. Ended up cracking my fairing with the one bolt back here. And honestly, to get on those hooks, I had to basically like hit it with a hammer and a chisel wrapped in some rubber so I wouldn't damage anything. But it's finally on there. The only thing I'm concerned about, oh yeah, I also had to grind like on the backing plate there so it would fit better into the radiuses. I think it might have been maybe just the powder coat that was a little too thick on this one, but anyways, got everything mounted up. Seems sturdy enough, so hope everything holds up. The only thing I'm concerned about though is if I ever have to pull this fairing off again, it's gonna be a mission to try and get this thing off without breaking any plastic on the fairing. Just cause like I really had to like force that thing on there. And like I said, I don't want to talk shit about the guy. Mike's been really cool, and I think his design is really great. It's just it might just be these Harley fairings that, you know, aren't really consistent with the years. Who knows what it is, but I really had a hard time getting this light on. But I honestly think it really is a great design. The fact that it hooks on to the hooks that your fairing hooks onto, and you know, that right there, because obviously if you have a heavy light and it holds onto the fairing, like, it's gonna rip this thing off when you come down from a wheelie. So I think Mike's design where it hooks on is genius, because, you know, it takes a lot of the stress off the fairing, which means hopefully your fairing is going to last a lot longer. But yeah, so that was lights from Villa Tucky Customs. I think all in it was $320 USD shipped to my door, and yeah, they're gonna be pretty bright, which I'm stoked about. And this is the color combo I went with. Makes the front end look wicked on these older gen Road Glides.